Alright, so I just wanted to make a quick video to make sure that the way that these graphic organizers work is understood. So quadrilaterals are the shapes that we're working with right now, and the only two requirements that a quadrilateral needs to have is that it has 4 sides and 4 angles. There are many different types of quadrilaterals. This is like the big overarching kind of category. One type of a quadrilateral is a trapezoid. It only has one pair of parallel sides, only one. So it kind of hangs out by itself. It doesn't really fit with any of the other categories. A more specific type of quadrilateral is a parallelogram. And a parallelogram has 2 pairs of parallel and congruent sides, so the opposite sides are parallel and congruent, meaning that they're the same length. A parallelogram can sometimes be a rectangle, which a rectangle has opposite sides that are congruent and parallel, and the more specific thing about a rectangle is that it has 4 right angles. And with a rhombus is another kind of parallelogram where all 4 sides are congruent. It doesn't have any specifications about the angles. It just needs to have 4 sides that are congruent. So sometimes a rectangle can be a square. If all 4 sides are congruent and the opposite sides are parallel and it has 4 right angles, then it's considered a square. A rhombus is considered a square if all of its angles are 90 degrees. So the way that these arrows work, starting from the top going down, sometimes a quadrilateral is just a quadrilateral, sometimes a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, sometimes it's a trapezoid, sometimes it's a rectangle, and so on and so forth moving down the line. With the red arrows, we start from the bottom and work our way up. So a square is always considered to be a rectangle. A square is always considered to be a rhombus. A square is always considered to be a parallelogram. A square is always considered to be a quadrilateral. Because the parallelogram and quadrilateral have the widest range of requirements, there's a lot more shapes that fall underneath them, where the trapezoid is a more specific shape. The second way that they're learning how to sort is by using a Venn diagram. This can also be another way for them to represent the information and remember the properties. So a square is the most specific, but it shares qualities and properties with a rhombus and a rectangle, having to do with its side lengths and its angles. So squares are always going to be rhombuses and squares are always going to be rectangles, but the opposite is not always true. All 3 of these shapes are always going to be considered parallelograms because its opposite sides are parallel and congruent. And all of these shapes, including trapezoids, are considered quadrilaterals because they have 4 sides and 4 angles. Again, the trapezoid doesn't fit in with the parallelograms because it does not have 2 sets of parallel and congruent sides. It only has 1 set of parallel sides.